It was a really busy weekend for Tennessee football and the transfer portal, hosting several prospects. Who did Tennessee move the needle with? That and so much more. NFL draft as well. It is your Monday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Monday morning edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here and making the show your first listen, your first watch each and every single morning. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and try to do a mailbag edition of the show tomorrow, so send in those questions at _Caner at Locked On Vols, and of course you can comment on the YouTube episode here. This episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at Amazon Fire TV Stick. Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn your TV into an Xbox, no console needed. Head on over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more today with Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. All right, a couple of things to get out in the open. As you can probably tell by listening or if you're watching, I don't look great. I don't sound great. Allergies. Boy, I have them. A lot of runny noses, a lot of coughing, all that type of stuff. So that is not great. I apologize for sounding horrific. I know that is not great when you're in this industry, but hey, sometimes it is how it is. That's the bad news. The good news is I'm a father, and it's probably not great that the allergies came this weekend, but again, is what it is. Baby boy, he is perfect. I really appreciate a lot of you guys sending some comments, some messages, some tweets. He's awesome. So, we are thrilled. We're back home getting adjusted to the new normal, and around the clock's feedings, that's gonna take a toll. But no, we are thrilled. Wife's a superstar. Baby boy's perfect. And so really appreciate a lot of you guys reaching out. Seriously, it means the world. So we're on cloud nine, but we're really, really pumped. I want to thank Chris Gordy for stopping by and helping out the show a little bit last week as well. I did a pre-recorded show on Friday. Me and Chris actually did a pre-recorded show for this time that I'm going to play segments of in segments 2 and 3, talking about SEC win totals. But again, when Nico Iamaleava leaves the program, that changes a lot of the Tennessee conversation, so we don't talk a whole lot about Tennessee in there. But taking a look at the win totals per FanDuel around the SEC, that's coming up with Chris Gordy in segments 2 and 3. But here to get things kicked off, basically just running down a list of who was on campus this weekend, kind of where Tennessee is in terms of the transfer portal, looking at the NFL draft, all that and more. We'll learn more about these guys if and when Tennessee does get commitments from them, but obviously still looking at wide receiver, still looking at defensive tackle big time, right? Marcus Burries Jr. from Indiana. He was on campus this past weekend, played his last 2 years at Indiana, 34 tackles in 24, 4.5 TFLs, and 2 sacks. He began his career at Texas A&M and obviously has experience in this league and in the Big Ten. He's going to Memphis, I believe, and that's the only place else he's going to right now unless that changes. And, of course, we know those things changes by the minute. And an article by VolQuest.com catching up with, I think it was Austin Price, catching up with Marcus after his visit over the weekend to Tennessee. He said, quote, "They told me it would be a rotational thing. They don't have a defined starter just yet, a defensive tackle, defensive line overall, which is something I could always come in and work towards. So it's nothing set in stone. I didn't make no promises. I just know it's definitely an opportunity here, and that's the biggest thing going into the portal was looking for an opportunity," end quote. So Tennessee hosted Indiana transfer defensive tackle Marcus Burries Jr. over the weekend, and we'll see, how that transpires over the next couple of days. Another defensive lineman that was on campus this past weekend, Josh Shell from Grand Valley State, about 6'3.5", 6'4", 290. Again, playing at Grand Valley State, 35 tackles, 3 TFLs, and 2 sacks this past year. He was on campus on Saturday and into the Sunday night, and I'm not sure where he's going next, but obviously Josh Shell, another name to kind of pay attention to as Tennessee's looking to add a defensive tackle. Late last week, it was Isaiah Johnson, I believe it was Friday, that he was on campus with Tennessee, a transfer from Arizona. He headed to North Carolina over the weekend and eventually plans to visit Kansas State. But Isaiah Johnson, another defensive tackle, defensive lineman that Tennessee's very much in on. So those guys have visited here in the last couple of days. Mason Nelson, who was on campus, I want to say about a week ago, the defensive tackle from Western Michigan, he went ahead and committed to Vanderbilt over the weekend. And I don't know how high on the list, on the priority list that he was in terms of defensive tackles for Tennessee. And what I'm trying to say is I don't think that's, oh man, Tennessee couldn't even get this commit from Vanderbilt, right? Or couldn't beat out Vanderbilt for a commit. I think he was one where Tennessee said, well, we got bigger fish to fry. But nonetheless, Mason Nelson, defensive tackle from Western Michigan, is off the board after visiting a little bit last week. Big one that hurt over the weekend, BYU receiver Keelan Marion, transfer from BYU. Tennessee very interested in him. He committed to Miami on Sunday. So that's not great. Obviously, Tennessee only has 7 scholarship wide receivers. Tennessee needs help at wide receiver. And so they really, really like Keelan Marion, and he committed to Miami. So that's not great news. Tennessee's supposed to have McNeese State wide receiver transfer Jermichael Carter on campus either Monday or Tuesday early in the week. So we'll have to take a look at that and see if Tennessee can move the needle there. Okay, so that's a look at Tennessee in the transfer portal. Some names to keep an eye on. I know with the baseball going on, NFL draft going on, the Nico sweepstakes, all that and more, it's kind of easy to lose the nitty-gritty on some names that Tennessee's after. So that's kind of what the purpose of this segment number 1 was. I wanted to go through and list some names that Tennessee's been hosting here of late at the defensive tackle position specifically. We turn our attention now to the NFL draft. Pretty good showing for Tennessee in the NFL draft. How about my wife as well? Sitting in the hospital, and then even when we came home on Saturday, we watched the entirety of the NFL draft from pick 1 to Mr. Irrelevant. Normally that wouldn't happen, but I think she was so consumed with the little bundle of joy that she was holding, she didn't care. So able to watch the entirety of the NFL draft, able to watch a lot of Tennessee baseball. You guys know I covered Tennessee baseball on the beat for VolQuest.com. It's a lot more enjoyable to watch and not have to work, right? You kind of look at it through a different lens, but I still have the best job in the world and looking forward to getting back out to the ballpark, probably this coming up weekend against Auburn at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. But nonetheless, a lot of NFL draft news. James Pearce, first-round selection. I thought he was going to be a first-round selection. Again, it's just too much talent. Just too much measurables. Just too much potential there. Somebody was going to take a chance on him, and it was Atlanta, who actually took Georgia's Jalen Walker 15 overall to kind of shore up that defensive front, the edges. Traded back up with the Los Angeles Rams, took James Pearce at 26 overall, and so James Pearce from Charlotte to Knoxville, now to Atlanta, and James Pearce becomes the 48th first-round draft pick for Tennessee all-time, so congratulations to him. Omarr Norman-Lott, second round of the Chiefs. That's awesome. Dante Thornton, fourth round of the Raiders, and then Dylan Sampson, fourth round of the Browns. The Browns, interesting draft. They took Quinshon Judkins earlier before they took Dylan Sampson, so 2 running backs. They took Dylan Gabriel, obviously, before taking Shadir Sanders. Mel Kiper Jr., boy, oh boy, what a horrendous weekend for Mel Kiper. Oh my goodness. I mean, you want to talk about embarrassment? The fact that he was sitting there talking about how the NFL over the last 30 years, actually I think he said 50 years, doesn't know how to evaluate quarterbacks. Oh my gosh, man. Horrendous. But the prank call to Shadir Sanders was such Bush League. I mean, I hate that for him. That was pathetic. But, man, Mel Kiper had a bad weekend. Sanders had a bad weekend. But, nonetheless, the Browns, an interesting draft class. Dylan Gabriel, Shadir Sanders, and then at running back, Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson. Chance to go compete. And really, really looking forward to that. Undrafted free agent signings, Amari Thomas to the Saints. That's great. Elijah Simmons to the Cardinals. You knew that he was going to land in camp somewhere. And Will Brooks. Hey, I thought Will Brooks was awful. I thought Will Brooks sucked. That's what was told to me this past year, right? It's not like he was Tennessee's best defensive back, best safety, okay? Congratulations to him, man. Walk on to Tennessee, now getting an opportunity to make the roster for the Chiefs. So best of luck to him. That is really, really cool. So my voice is getting a little wary right now. I apologize. Again, allergies, hopefully they'll move through. I'll be feeling a lot better tomorrow. At the time of this recording, nothing in terms of Cooper Mays, Brew McCoy, John Campbell, Javonte Spraggins, any of those other guys. So, Cooper Mays and Brew McCoy, the 2 biggest to be watching for, obviously. But at the time of this recording, nothing happening. So that kind of stinks. And then lastly, here in segment number 1, I want to touch base on a basketball visitor. Yeah, talking a lot about Tennessee football and the transfer portal, Tennessee in the NFL draft. But Tennessee is still trying to finalize that basketball roster. And it's kind of getting to that point to where it's like, well, what are you going to do, right? You need a shooting guard. You absolutely need a shooting guard. So they plan to host, on a report from the Knoxville News Sentinel, Amari Abram, okay? He was from Louisiana Tech. Plan to host him on a visit on Monday, again, according to a report from Knox News, Amari Abram from Louisiana Tech. He averaged 12.3 points per game, 4.4 rebounds per game, 1.7 assists per game. Last year, shot 42% from beyond the arc, or from the field, 37% from beyond the arc. Averaged 32.1 minutes per game and started all 32 games. Began his career at Ole Miss, 33 games, and then played 10 games at Georgia Tech as a true freshman to begin his career. So very much experienced guy. We'll see if he ends up making it to campus, and we'll see where Tennessee basketball goes as they try to finalize their basketball roster, which I think Jalen Carey, Jacoby Gillespie, obviously Native Ment. I think it's a pretty good roster, but they need, in terms of numbers, they need a shooting guard for sure, at least one more. So we'll see if that potentially could be Amari Abram from Louisiana Tech. All right, guys, appreciate you for being here. Again, so sorry about my voice. Very much under the weather, but all's good here. Hopefully we're going to move past this and sound better tomorrow. Send in your questions, your comments, your concerns for a mailbag show coming up later tomorrow. Chris Gordy, this is a pre-recorded episode I plan to run completely during this time, but because Nico Iamaleava left Tennessee, obviously that changes things. So I went through and scrubbed and used as much as I could, trying not to focus on Tennessee. I think I say at one point in time that Tennessee's total is 9.5. It's actually down 1 to 8.5 since the Nico Iamaleava departure. But nonetheless, looking at some of the higher win totals, some of the lower win totals around the Southeastern Conference. So that's my conversation coming up with Chris Gordy as we continue here with a Monday episode of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on all the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes it so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving in to the specific player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props that you can put some coin in your pocket. Plus, after the games tip off, you can even combine live prop bets into same-game parlays for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head on over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, new customers, bet $5, get $250 in bonus bets when you join FanDuel on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Let's look at some of these other win totals around the SEC. Chris Gordy, I mentioned Tennessee at 9.5, joined by Texas at 9.5, and Georgia at 9.5. Any surprises? Which team has the greater chance of hitting that over?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still bullish on Georgia. I know it's been, it's been 2 straight years that Georgia hasn't won a championship. Might be time to put Kirby Smart on the hot seat. But no, I think they've done such a good job with recruiting top 5 recruiting classes every year and stacking talent. And their big question is quarterback right now, and who's going to be that guy. There's some debate. People are pushing for Ryan Puglisi, saying that he should be the guy over Gunnar Stockton. So we'll see as this thing plays out. But I default to Georgia because they've been there, done that, right? I mean, they won back-to-back national championships, and I still think Kirby is one of the best coaches in all college football. And so I think Georgia, that's a good line, 9.5. The Tennessee one is what gets interesting because I start to look at their schedule and we can run through it. But I kind of put them down as 8, what I consider locks for wins. I go, okay, these 8, I know I feel pretty good that they're going to win these. And then I put about 4 toss-ups that I think could go either way. And so, just kind of run through it. The Syracuse game, by the way, I got to meet Fran Brown a few months ago at the Bear Bryant Awards, and really good dude. Like that's a future star in the making as far as like head coaches. Like he'll probably be an SEC coach one day. He's a Kirby disciple and just really good recruiter. Like you could see the guy's just coached. I mean, all those great guys they had in the secondary at Georgia throughout the years. I mean, he's just a good football coach. And so, look, I don't think Syracuse is there talent-wise yet. Who knows? Maybe they can give Tennessee a close game in the opener. But I still feel like that's one Tennessee should win going away. It's in Atlanta. You'll have more fans there. I feel pretty good about Tennessee winning that one. And then, of course, the East Tennessee State game. That give them that one. So Tennessee's 2-0 going into Georgia. I hate that game is so early. I wish it was a little bit later in the year, but maybe it's a good thing. Maybe Georgia, let's say it is Gunnar Stockton or Ryan Puglisi, like that's a big game early in the year, and you got to go to Neyland. So that's the first game that I put as a toss-up, Eric, but to me, that's kind of one that it's like, it's a big prove-it game for whoever the Georgia quarterback is.
Real quick, we'll go game by game as the show goes on. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on each individual matchups. I would assume, tell me if I'm wrong, your other toss-ups, if you will. Let's see, if you have 8 locks, and that means you have 4 toss-ups. 2 of the other toss-ups would have to be Alabama and Florida on the road. What's that 4th toss-up you have?
So it's interesting. I mean, look, I gave them the win at Kentucky because I just feel like that's all a mess right now. Now, Mark Stoops has done a good job of bringing in a lot of good portal players. I just don't know how it's all going to look, right? I mean, they lost a ton of really good players who were big contributors for them. Barry and Brown, Dane Key, like all these dudes have left.
And they were still really bad last year. Water's wet, Tennessee beats Kentucky. Yeah, that's just how it works.
And the quarterback situation is very in flux for them. And so, look, had they brought everybody back from the Kentucky team last year, maybe they'd be better. Maybe they could give Tennessee a fight. I don't know what this Kentucky team is going to look like. So I give them the win there. The Oklahoma game intrigues me because they bring in John Mateer, the quarterback from Washington State, who put up some really good numbers. Their new OC, Ben Arbuckle, is coming from Washington State. I've had numerous people tell me they believe that this Oklahoma offense is going to improve dramatically. Now, what's been the big thing with Brent Venables? He's a defensive-minded coach. Defense always going to be good. Last year, the offense was just a debacle. Jackson Arnold, inconsistency, all that stuff. So if they get that figured out, and where that game falls, right? It's later in the year, November 1st. I think there's a chance Oklahoma, could – maybe you get into a shootout, and that's just what I'm saying is like maybe it's a toss-up. I mean, if you're asking me to pick the game today, I'm picking Tennessee because it's at home. But I'm just saying that's one to be careful with when we run through all the opponents. Yeah,
no doubt about it. You'll look at Tennessee's schedule like we will here in a moment in a more in-depth detail. It's kind of like, well, yeah, sure, you got Florida, Georgia, Alabama on there, but like it's not like previous Tennessee schedules where you're also playing an LSU and like whoever's cycling up that year, it just so happens to be the other opponent in the SEC West that Tennessee's playing. Tennessee's had a horrible schedule for all of eternity, but I mean, last year was doable. This year I think is very doable, but Oklahoma in the month of November is certainly one to watch. We looked at the teams. I didn't pick every single team from the SEC, just some notables. We looked at some of those 9.5 win total teams, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia. Here's some 8.5, Ole Miss and Alabama. Quickly, Gordy, I think, both of these teams should hit the over there, in my opinion. For Ole Miss, it all comes down to will the quarterback that everybody's hyping up, will he hit? And then for Alabama, it's who's going to play quarterback. If it's the veteran Ty Simpson, is he good enough with a really good roster to get over that 8.5? I think both these teams can hit, but it's all going to come down to quarterback play for both these teams.
Yeah, and I'm not running to the table to just go, locks 9 wins or better. Like, I got to see these quarterbacks. For Ole Miss, we've heard some, rumblings about how good Austin Simmons has looked, and I get it, but we can't just discount. Jackson Dart was a stud, man. Jackson Dart was an absolute stud that just left. And all those receivers, they lose a bunch of them, and they bring in new ones through the portal. And again, you just assume they're all going to hit. A lot of times in this day and age in portals, you're finding there are guys who don't hit. That there are guys who are underachieving and don't succeed. So I got to see a lot on Austin Simmons. I got to see a defense too. Like Pete Golding did a good job, but again, you lose Walter Nolan, you lose Princely Amon-Mielon, you lose a lot of pieces from that defense, and so. Would it shock me if Ole Miss were to go 8-4? No. I mean, I think, schedule is favorable for him, but quarterback is big. And then the other one, like you mentioned, Alabama, like we got to stop back to like Nick Saban is at Alabama. He's gone. And this whole Bama, like I saw people doing their projections out there. Like, I got Alabama in the playoff. I'm like, why? Like, what have they done to show you that they're a playoff team? 9-4 DeBoer just finished season 1, losing to Michigan in a bowl game. And that's not the national champion Michigan team. That's a bad Michigan team you just lost to. So, man, it's to me, it's prove it time. And it's funny. We were running through ranking the quarterbacks in the SEC the other day, and we get all the way to the end. Somebody goes, wait, we didn't do Bama. I said, what does that say about the state of Alabama quarterback where we just ran through all the great quarterbacks in the SEC? We didn't even mention Alabama. Now, Ty Simpson could be good, but there's so much momentum building for Keelan Russell. A lot of people want to see this freshman and what he can do. And then on the flip side, there's the other, Austin Mack, who was recruited by Ryan Grubb at Washington. Like he handpicked him. He was his recruiter. And now Ryan Grubb is the OC at Alabama. He's going to like Austin Mack, and he's going to give him every chance too. I say Ty Simpson, he's the inexperienced vet is what I'm calling him. He's a vet, he's been around a while. Just haven't seen him play. He hasn't played very much. And so that battle to me is going to be very interesting. And it's all this credit we gave we gave Kalen DeBoer about, look at his offenses. Look at what he did at Fresno and Indiana and Michael Penix at Washington and all this. Okay, great. Well, I'm seeing DraftNix saying Jalen Milroe is going to be a first-round pick, and you just lost 4 games with him?
Yeah.
So, and you could say oil and water and all this. They didn't mix, this running the right system, whatever. Okay, but pressure's on DeBoer. And so, again, if I'm a betting man, if I put my money today on it, I would probably take the over on both Ole Miss and Alabama. But the big question mark, man, is if those quarterbacks don't live up to what you're hoping, 8-4, 7-5 is possible for both those teams.
Why is everybody loving Auburn this offseason, and why in the world is Florida's win total at 6.5? A couple more totals we're going to look at here.
There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in that arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets when the demand is sky high. Prices, they actually drop down the closer tip-off gets, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Last-minute deals are the reason why I love Game Time so much. You get 60% off buying last-minute for sports, but not just sports. Comedy, concerts, theater, whatever events happening in your area, chances are you can find a ticket for said event and save close to the beginning of that event on the Game Time app. All-in prices means no surprise fees at checkout as well. What you see is what you pay for. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets today with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Couple more SEC win totals I want to take a look at here, and let's go to a team that I don't quite get there, Gordy. Tell me why Auburn. Everybody loves Auburn. Auburn's like in all these preseason rankings and thinking they're going to be the surprise team, a dark horse team, maybe a top half of the SEC team. 7.5. It's not like you're hanging banners if you win 8 games, but I don't think Auburn's very good. Tell me if you think Auburn hits that over at 7.5.
Well, they have the chance to be very good. And I bring this up. I mean, go look at some of their losses last year. They lost a close one to Arkansas. They lost a close one late to Oklahoma. Should have won that one. They lost a close one at Missouri. It was close with Vanderbilt. The Cal loss was by 1 score. And even the Iron Bowl, I mean, they hung around a while. If they just could have punched it in the end zone, they would have been in that one. So I think what people are looking at going, look, Auburn goes 5-7 last year, but they were close. They were knocking on the door. If they just could have figured a few things out, found some consistency at the quarterback spot. We all said it. We all knew it. Peyton Thorne sucked. I mean, no offense to the kid, but going all in on him was just not the right decision. Now, Jackson Arnold's a different story. Jackson Arnold is a former 5-star quarterback that has all the skill set, and they weren't able to find that last year at Oklahoma. It cost his OC his job, but he did do some things with his legs. They were able to beat Alabama late in the year, a marquee win for Brent Venables. And so, can Hugh Freeze get the best out of Jackson Arnold? That's what everybody's asking. And look, he missed on Thorne, but look at his track record before that. Quarterbacks he had at Liberty, quarterbacks he had at Ole Miss. He's always, kind of taken kind of average quarterbacks and gotten the best out of them. And so that's kind of the question is if Jackson Arnold can live up to that 5-star hype that he had and Hugh Freeze can get the most out of him, granted, he's going to have the best supportive cast he's had because – look at Oklahoma. Their entire wide receiver room got injured last year. He was throwing the Bauer Sharp, the tight end. That was their leading receiver last year.
No.
Now he comes in with Cam Coleman, who was an electric freshman for Auburn last year. A couple other freshman receivers they had last year. They go out in the portal and get Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech, one of the most highly sought after wide receivers in the portal. And it seems like the offensive line is going to be a little bit more consistent. So you look around Auburn's room and you go, okay, there's talent here. I think that's why people are buying into the optimism. But don't get it twisted, man. Right out of the gates, a road trip at Baylor, they lose that one right out of the gates. There's going to be a lot of people calling for Hugh Freeze's head saying, I don't know if this is the guy. Because then a few weeks after that, it's a road trip at Oklahoma, road trip at A&M, home for Georgia, home for Mizzou. This thing gets very serious. And so I'm with you. be skeptical on Auburn, but I also say don't be surprised if they find a way to string some wins together, and they could be sitting at, maybe 8 wins going into that Iron Bowl last week of the season.
Bauer Sharp, a one-time Tennessee tight end, by the way, in case you're wondering, he was not a receiver. Tight end targets in the transfer portal who elected to go to Oklahoma over Tennessee and some others.
And he's now at LSU, by the way. He's, these guys who go to the portal, like I can't even keep track of they're guys on their 4th and 5th schools now.
A couple more, and then I wanted to get in the game by game, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on these. I want to flash the 7.5 back up. South Carolina. Why South Carolina is not the darling of the offseason, I have no clue. Really good at the line of scrimmage, can get after the passer. Got a quarterback that's the real deal. So South Carolina's total at 7.5. Gordy, I don't get. And then Florida, 6.5. I'm shocked. Okay, I would put the mortgage on that being over. And of course, I'm a Tennessee fan. I don't want that for Florida, but that total's so low. And then Vanderbilt at 4.5. I'm looking at Vanderbilt's schedule right now, and tell me there's some 5 wins in there, right? Charleston Southern, Georgia State.
They lost to Georgia State last year, so
that's true. That's true. But they were a different team later in the year.
Yeah, you think with Pavia getting another year back, that's almost a lock. They should get 5 wins and 6 wins if everything goes well.
South Carolina, though, 8 wins. That's got to be a lock, right?
I'll tell you, their schedule is they got road trips at Missouri, at LSU, at Ole Miss, at A&M. Those are all really tough road games. They get home games against Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson. So, look, I like South Carolina, too. We had Shane Beamer on the show a couple of weeks ago. We had Dylan Stewart, their stud freshman edge rusher from last year, on the show a few weeks ago. They're all saying the right things. I do think a couple things here. Lenore Sellers, incredible with his feet. I got to see him improve as a passer. He had some nice games, but it seems like they went and got some new weapons for him to catch. It was like, well, who's their stud wide receiver, right? Juice Wells left last year, went to Ole Miss. Feels like they've added some guys in the portal, but I just think schedules is, we want to buy stock in South Carolina, but look at that schedule. And even if you're being optimistic, 7-8 wins is not crazy. Like they could be a really good team, but go 7-5 because the schedule's brutal. And on the flip side, Florida too. I'm with you. I'm all aboard the DJ Lagway hype train. I think he's going to be awesome, but the schedule is tough. They get Long Island, they get South Florida, but then it's at LSU, at Miami in back-to-back weeks. Good luck with that. Carson Beck may be really good at Miami. Then you get Texas at home. Everybody circling that one going, could be the Arch Manning coming out party. They're at A&M. They got Georgia neutral field. And then the backstretch of the season, it's at Ole Miss, home for Tennessee, home for Florida State. It's a tough schedule. Billy Napier did an awesome job down the stretch. Give him a lot of credit, but he's standing by. He's going to be play caller. They hired Russ Callaway as OC, but Billy Napier is going to be calling the plays still. And I wonder, 7-5, what does it look like? Is it because you lost 4 or 5 close games by a field goal? Certainly is doable for Florida, but that's the reason the win total is low. It's because of the schedule.
All right, guys, that's going to do it here for this Monday morning Locked On Vols. Again, big time apologies. I sound awful. I look awful. It's part of this deal when you're in this industry. You just got to kind of work through it. But today's episode was kind of a hodgepodge going over some of the portal names that were, here over the weekend in segment number 1. Just kind of staying dialed in on who were some of those names. NFL draft for the Vols, James Pearce, first-round pick. And then, of course, in the back half, talking with Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC, who hosted one of the shows while I was out, and talking a little SEC win total. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and hopefully there weren't too many Tennessee mentions in there because I tried my best to scrub as much from that conversation because that was recorded before the Nico Iamaleava news. Planning to get back and record a full episode tomorrow and bringing you the latest on what's happening on the Hill right now. A lot going on. Of course, I didn't even mention Jacoby Thomas, transfer portal. Will Jacoby Thomas stay in the transfer portal? I don't know. We'll see. A lot going on right now. No place better to stay up to date than all of it than right here at Locked On Vols. Get in your questions, comments, concerns for a Tuesday mailbag show. This is Locked On Vols.